Welcome to episode 17 of the Current Backloggers. The date is June 4th. I am your host, KCP, and it's just me today. No Cody G. He texted me before we were about to go on tonight and asked if it was okay if he skipped a week because he wasn't feeling well mentally. So I told him, of course, it was, or something like that. So, with that being said, if you want to throw some good vibes Cody's way, as the kids say, sounds like he could use it. And also, with that being said, I'm guessing it's probably gonna be a slow week with him not being here, coupled with the fact that it seems to be a slow week in general, games and entertainment wise. So we'll see though, because I feel like we said that multiple weeks, and then multiple times it's been over an hour and a half, if not longer. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll just get into the show like normal. So what I've been up to lately is, I was gonna say, try and do things to find happiness and to make those others around me happy and to distract myself from all the craziness that's going on, which I guess it is distraction, but I feel like right now it has a real negative connotation to it. If you say you're trying to distract yourself from what's going on because it's such a serious situation, and if you do that, it somehow means you're automatically supporting no causes or you're automatically on one side, and I just don't agree with that. I feel like it's very important to find happiness and peace and to not just surround yourself with all the negativity 100% of the time. And I don't, like I said, I don't think that means that you automatically don't support anything or that you're on one side of anything. I feel like with most issues, it's very one sided, not the issue itself, but the fact that it's a serious issue and there's very serious things going on. So if you do something that's not serious or do something that's enjoyable or get away from it, that you automatically don't care about it because there's something more serious going on. But I feel like any issue, and I've talked about this with the virus and many things, that I feel like people need to learn to separate things and learn to not have everything connect. And yeah, I feel like you have to understand that just because you do one thing doesn't automatically mean something else. So what I've been doing to try and do that is I've been around my family more than normal, and I'm already around them a good amount. And me and my family and my girlfriend Danielle decided to go to multiple state parks and go through trails and go hiking. And it was a perfect day for it. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. The sun was out the whole time. Then there's the shade from the trees. And I recommend anybody doing that, even if you don't have a group of people to go. It's just so relaxing to be away from everything and calming, and like I said, not in a negative way, but um, takes you away from all the nonsense and distracts you. And especially if you do have people that you're close to and can go with you, I think it just makes it that much better to be able to be with people and realize that there is a lot of serious stuff going on, but like I said, that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself. And also puts things in perspective and realize that there is layers to everything. So I think that helped a lot, and I feel like could help a lot of people. And another thing was we went to more drive-in movies, and again, perfect weather for it. And another great way to spend time with people, or if you're alone, and just be able to find small enjoyment. And I can talk about the movies I saw once we get into movies. And then besides that, the only other thing I did was I went to downtown Columbus, the city we're in, to try and clean up after all this happened. And then I got up early on a day I had to work and went down there And then I went to start. Me and I took my little sister, and we couldn't find anybody. It was a big group that was supposed to be there, and we were joking about if it got canceled or not because it was perfect, again, perfect weather, so there's no reason it should have. And I looked at the event, and it was canceled the day that we were there. So it was that was depressing. So we just spent a couple hours walking around downtown, and it was hard to be around it because downtown Columbus is my favorite place in the world, and that's not exaggeration or a joke to a lot of people. That would seem like it, even people from Ohio or Columbus. But it's my favorite place in the world, and it was hard seeing it the way it is. It definitely could be way worse than like some other cities where buildings are burnt to the ground and it seems like there's literally nothing left. For Columbus, it was mostly broken windows or boarded up windows, so they hopefully wouldn't break them, or they already did and they were trying to cover it up, and a lot of graffiti. So all stuff that should be able to be fixed and cleaned up and doesn't seem permanent or drastic, but obviously all stuff that is unnecessary not should not be happening. And also it's hard to see with how much I care about it, but also was, I don't know the word to use. I was gonna say nice to be able to see it for myself and see it when it was more calm and not all the craziness was going on, and to see that it wasn't as bad as it could be. And I don't know. I guess there's not much more to say about that. But besides that, I'd been working the normal, I think Daniel says 36-hour work week. I can't remember. Um, but besides that, that's just up to all the normal stuff. And then for corrections, questions, and feedback, I don't have anything this week. And if you do, as always, you can send to currentbackloggers@gmail.com. And we would appreciate that. If you have any questions you want to ask us about literally anything, it could be games, movies, sports, something ridiculous, um, something like this versus that, whatever you want to do, we'd appreciate it. Corrections are always appreciated, and feedback as well. So anything you want to send to currentbackloggers@gmail.com. And then the news for this week is, the biggest news is that the PS5 reveal event that was supposed to happen um, on today, on June 4th, was postponed because of everything that's been going on, which is obviously disappointing because we were finally going to get a look at it. But for me and us, it was even more disappointing because I changed my schedule around at work to be able to do this, and we're going to have people over. We talked about how we do E3 every year, making an event, and this year is obviously going to be way different because everything's spaced out and just little events. But this seemed like a giant one, so we were looking forward to it, and it seemed like everybody's going to be able to come, and we actually were going to do the podcast in person for the first time in I don't know how long, but over a month. I can't remember how long it's been now. Time kind of seems irrelevant. It seems like I can't believe it's June, but at the same time, it feels like the year's lasted 3 years. So time's very odd right now. But so yeah, I was just very disappointed overall, and my schedule. I was going to talk about this for the hours. That's kind of why I'm slowing down sometimes when I talk to make sure I make sense. But my hours did change back to normal, so it will be 40-hour work weeks every week. But the plus side of that is that I'll be off at 7:30 every night. So starting on June 18th, me and Cody will be doing a podcast in person again, unless like normal something comes up or we can't do it or not able to, because unfortunately it's in our full-time job and we both have jobs and both have things that can come up. But that is the plan, and we'll be watching Lost every Thursday. That's why we schedule around it. We've all been watching it separately, but we'll be able to gather back together again, finish that, and then do our podcast. So I'm looking forward to that, even though I wish it could have been tonight. And the PS5 event getting, everybody's saying canceled, but it's not canceled, it's postponed. So it will be rescheduled. And hopefully that'll be a day that we're able to do it. But either way, we'll obviously talk about it on here. But that's why we're hoping it's just going to work out so well that we could come back in person and be able to have such a big thing to talk about. So hopefully that'll work out. And if not, we'll cover it either way. But I want to talk about the PS5 event being postponed because since this has happened, I feel like most things, it's very one-sided, and if you say anything, then you're being disrespectful or rude. And I've been thinking about, I'm definitely going to do a separate podcast to cover things like social issues, politics, current events, anything like that, because I feel like me and Cody want to keep this more, not only games, but maybe entertainment, games, movies, sports, with obviously games being the anchor of it. And then obviously if we have stories like this that come up that bring politics or social issues into it, we're not going to avoid it if it's related to games and if it seems natural to talk about it. But the more we've done this, I feel like my thought from the beginning was to have podcasts where we talk about anything, but it just doesn't seem to fit us talking about entertainment majority of the time and randomly talking about these things. So I plan to do that and then not have that in the normal podcast that we do. But I did want to cover this since I'm not doing that yet, and also like I said, I do want to talk about these things if they're related to games and make sense to talk about. And this definitely does, because they postponed it because everything's going on right now out of respect. And I just don't agree with that at all. Like I say, even for myself, I feel like you need to learn to separate things, and I don't feel like because you host an event to advertise your product and to make people happy and maybe take their eyes off of something for 2 hours, that makes you a bad business or bad people. And I get that's exactly what the other side is saying that it does, because it distracts you. But I think we could all use a little balance of, with everything that's happening, a little bit of positivity and happiness. And I think it's very hypocritical and silly to have just that angle, because in 2016 there was Sony's press conference happened at E3, even though the day before that was the shooting in Orlando. That, but I feel like it's hypocritical because in 2016, Sony still had their E3 press conference, even though the day before that was the shooting in Orlando that killed 49 people and wounded 53 others. And it was at a gay bar, and it was during Pride Month, and was literally by a terrorist group and was targeting gay people. So obviously a hate crime, and obviously a group of people that has been discriminated against and not treated right at times throughout history. So very comparable to what's happening now. And I get that everybody will say that it's not just the one person that died, it's a bigger issue. But like I said, it's not just this event, which also, this is 49 people died and 53 others that were hurt. But then you could say how this has been an issue for their history too, and also the fact that it was during their month of celebration and was literally by a terrorist group targeting them. And literally the next day, Sony thought it was okay to do a press conference, which I definitely think it is. I'm not saying they shouldn't have. That's what I'm saying. Where are you going to draw the line? Because you could easily have, if I was a gay person, I wanted to be dramatic. You could say, okay, so it's okay to cancel an event because a certain race is being discriminated against or done wrong, but we're here and you can do a press conference the next day after 49 of us died and 53 of us were hurt and during our month of celebration. And I just feel like it's very unbalanced and sets a bad precedent to be able to, like, where does that stop? I know that people say that analogy is ignorant because people do that with gay people. Like, if you like gay people married, then where does it stop animals? I'm not saying that. Like I said, I feel like Sony had every right to have their press conference the day after that happened, because I feel like any normal human being knows that they're not doing that out of hatred and they're not doing that because they don't support something. So I feel like we could use that same logic to other events that are happening, especially because if you remember that E3, they used the beginning of it, even though it was uncomfortable, to not start talking about games and to talk about that and talk about how you could contribute to it and all the wrongdoing that was happening. So they used that as a platform to support it and to show what was wrong. But somehow this bad thing that's happening where one person died, and I said, I know you can say that's not the one person, it's the whole movement, but you could say this was 49 people and 53 others were hurt, and then not just that one day, but a history as well. And it was okay for them to do that then, but not now. So I feel like that just sets a bad tone to be able to not know where to stop. And then the PC gaming show, which was supposed to happen on June 6th, was postponed until June 13th for the same reason. And I had the same thoughts about it. I just don't. I know why they're doing it, but I don't agree with it at all. And I don't think it makes you a bad person, because I think you could use logic to see why it's not really fair that they're doing that. Not just because I want to see the PS5 and I want to hang out with my friends, but because you can apply this to very similar things and they didn't do it, which shouldn't be offensive that they didn't do it. It should be normal that you can separate things and things can still happen even though something as bad is happening. And then the only other things news wise was the announcement. I wish Cody was here. He's probably seen it, but I know he would love it. The announcement of the Sega Game Gear Mini, or Micro is what they're calling it, Sega Game Gear Micro, which, if you don't know, the Sega Game Gear was Sega's version of a Game Boy or PlayStation Vita or PSP. They're released in 91 in America, and actually I think it was very ahead of its time. If you look at it, it's very bulky and kind of silly, but very ahead of its time. And but like most end Sega things, like the Dreamcast and all these things that were cool, they were ahead of their time, but they didn't do well, unfortunately. So they announced the Micro to come out, and it'll be in 4 different colors: black, blue, yellow, and red. And each of them will have 4 pre-installed games, and it'll be retail for $50. So I think it's a really cool idea. I think it's weird to only have 4 games preloaded on each. I think they're clearly doing that intentionally to be able to get people to collect them all, because there's different games on each of them. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I think I will get one of them because I think it's really cool. Or maybe 2, one to have in a box and one to keep or to try out. But I could see this being very collectible, or I could see it being a thing that is $5 eventually at Five Below or um, dollar stores or anywhere like that. So we'll see where it goes. But I do think it's very interesting. Um, Gaming pickups, I don't have anything this week. That's where Cody usually comes in and lists a ton of stuff, but I don't have anything this week. What I've been playing is also not very much. I've been playing some more Sunset Overdrive, still having a lot of fun with it. Um, More Madden, trying to make sure I keep my playoff position in our franchise mode. More MCC as normal, and the more I play Halo, the more I love it. I just always remember something that jogs my memory, like a map or a mode or something, a weapon that comes up, and I just think about all the good memories of playing that game and who I was playing with at the time or what events were going on. So Halo is just never gets old to me. Um, what I've been watching is it was another Mandalorian Monday, episode 5, which covered practical effects, which is another thing I was hoping Cody would be on for because he loves practical effects more than anything. And it was really cool them showing. I'm not even somebody that really cares about practical effects. I think they're impressive and cool, but I think CG is underrated and gets way too much hate. Um, but it was cool seeing them still care about practical effects and use them because they appreciate what Star Wars started at and to try and continue to do that. And they even used stop motion at certain scenes, which I didn't realize watching it, but I thought that was really cool. And then it also showed how they filmed some of the original trilogy with um, why am I blanking here? Return of the Jedi. Why is it? I was thinking of Rise of Skywalker, but Return of the Jedi. They were showing some of how they filmed that, which I either have never seen or I put it out of my mind because it's been so long since I watched behind the scenes stuff for those. But there's stuff that way back then that they were doing that I did not know that's how they filmed some of it, or like I said, I put it out of my mind. But it was really cool to kind of see what was happening now currently and what was happening way back then. And then being getting caught up more on Lost and need to get caught up for June 18th. We're all together again to be able to watch Lost, so I'm almost there. And then me and Danielle watched the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary about Mr. Rogers. And if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend everybody to watch it, especially with how crazy everything is right now. It's couldn't be more fitting and uplifting and positive. And I think he was just, I was going to say a perfect man, but I feel like somebody like him would hate hearing that. But it kind of seems like he was. You don't hear anything bad about him. And with how close he was to kids and how creepy he could have came off and all of it seeming a little off, you haven't heard a single bad thing about him and him being a minister on top of that and how he can accuse people now, especially after they die. And not a single thing has come up that I feel like he was truly just as good as he seemed. And there's been movies, documentaries, stories, and they all line up to the same place that people have even tried to screw him over and tried to see that he has these major flaws. I was going to say flaws, but obviously he has flaws, but like flaws like that are not acceptable. And nobody can find them. And I feel like that's because they don't exist. I'm sure something eventually will come up because, like I said, people know they can take advantage of it. But if it was true, I think it would have came up by now. And I know that that come off as offensive too because if something did happen, it takes a long time for people to talk. But it's been a long time, no matter what age he would have been. And he's been dead for, I don't know, 15 years now, I think. So there's plenty of time for people to be able to speak, and they haven't. So the only reason I bring that up is because it's so rare that people just seem what they are and seem genuine and can be positive, great people. And I feel like he was one of those few people. And it was just really uplifting to see. It sounds corny, but don't know how else to talk about it, and it's true. And I feel like he would have been the perfect politician, and not in the way that people say that now, because politicians are not what they should be now. I feel like he would have been a perfect politician because he's a great speaker, but an even better listener and actually listens, not just sitting there and then just goes off about something else and let you talk. He's truly listening to you, and he's so respectful and well spoken. And I just I wish somebody like him could be our president and not the horrendous candidates we normally get. But like I said, I feel like everybody should watch it. I feel like was so ahead of his time, but at the same time was so essential, and I feel like couldn't be more fitting. Now he'd be more fitting than ever, and needed more than ever, but he was doing it 50, 60 years ago, and how much that stuff is happening now, and how much somebody like him would want it to be different. And yeah, like I said, if you haven't watched it, I would couldn't recommend it anymore, especially with everything that's going on, and be a little uplifting. Which, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with finding something uplifting and trying to feel better. And then the movies I saw at the drive-in were I watched Sonic again, which, like I said, I love Sonic, and if you haven't seen it, you should. It might seem like I'm coming off too highly about it because I don't think it's the best thing ever. I don't think it's like even an amazing movie. But people hate on video game movies so much that I feel like, for one, I had to kind of balance it out. And two, I feel like Sonic is definitely aimed more towards kids, so you have to know what you're getting into. And if you can do that, I think it's just such an enjoyable, fun movie. And then we watched the second movie there was Jumanji The Next Level, which is a sequel to the reboot Jumanji. Which the original Jumanji is fantastic, and that movie never get old. The reboot was, I think, pretty good. This one I think is just okay. I think the more it goes on, the more it declines. But again, kind of just wasn't really the movies themselves. It's more the excuse to be able to be around family and to be able to feel some sense of normalcy. And then the reminder for your free games this month, or this week, I always say month when I do that. On Xbox One, you got Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr till June 15th. I fucking hate that name. You got Shantae and the Pirate's Curse till June 30th. On 360, there's nothing this week. On the original Xbox, there's Destroy All Humans till June 15th. On PlayStation Plus, you have Call of Duty World War II and Star Wars Battlefront 2 till July 6th. And I don't have any fake outrage this week. There's enough real outrage and a good amount of fake outrage going around to cover that. But I'm sure that that'll be more frequent, especially with us being in person soon. Which that already brings us to the end of the show. So I feel like this is probably going to be our shortest episode ever. I can cover a few things I kind of already talked about. Like I said, we will be back next week, and Cody should be with me, and it'll be like this over the internet and webcams and everything, and it should be like that the next 2 weeks. And then June 18th we should be in person again, and hopefully by then we'll have a announcement of the PS5 press conference and when that is happening. And I'm gonna try and figure out the second podcast, because like I said, when I originally thought of this, I didn't want to just cover everything, because the podcast I listen to, I feel like, have a subject matter but don't stick to that and bounce all around. I do want me and Cody to be able to do that. I want us to talk about nonsense things, fun things. But the more we do this, it just feels like those things aren't fitting in there. The other things like the social issues, the politics, the Current events don't seem to fit in there, so I feel like this should be subject matter of the pillar as games, but is an entertainment podcast, so sports, movies, music, and then nonsense that comes up in between, and then have a separate podcast where it makes more sense to talk about those things. And I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it yet, but I just wanted to be able to be a place to be able to talk and get thoughts out and share things, because I feel like I'm around people that share things nonstop and preach and say whatever they want. And I see it on social media from everybody. And I feel like I can't do that. And it gets frustrating because I want to be able to share things too. And I feel like everybody should be able to talk. And I feel like everybody shouldn't just be kept to their own thoughts. And so trying to figure out how to do it best, but that's my plan. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but try and stay calm, try and find peace. I feel like no matter what your viewpoints on this are, if you aren't okay with peace and that's not a good thing for you, then you're probably part of the issue no matter what viewpoint you're on, because I think no good person should not want peace. But I guess that's all I'll say, and stay safe. As always, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Current Backlog. And if you have any corrections, questions, or feedback, you can send it to currentbackloggers at gmail.com. Thanks for watching again. We'll be back next week, and we'll be back in person soon. Love ya.